It is Sunday night. We are not talking Oscars. We're talking fantasy baseball. Tonight, we're going to be doing the 2025 closer pool. All coming up next in the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Happy Sunday evening, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, sponsored by Fantrax. We appreciate them for that. I am Scott Jenstad, joined as always on Sunday nights by Jeff Erickson. You can please rate or review the podcast. It helps us out a lot. Helps people find the podcast. Always a really good thing for us doing this. Jeff, it's March. We're talking baseball. It's a good thing right there.
Absolutely. We got spring training games now to analyze. We've got 2 early games coming up in like a little more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I saw like a thing on Twitter today. It was like 17 days. I was like, oh my gosh,
that's too soon.
Yeah,
too soon. But you know what? It's going to be. It's hitting us pretty fast. You know, I got another draft tomorrow. NL only home league. You know, it's like all these emails are coming through. It's lightning fast right now.
Yeah, it is. I need to catch up with all you guys, but I'm trying to do my best. We're going to talk closers tonight. Helped me a lot to prep for the spot. I kind of did all my closer research in one fell swoop here, so it should be fun to jump into that. But like you mentioned, we do have some spring training games going on, so we'll talk a little bit of news and notes here at the top. One of the bigger stories over the weekend, Luis Gil, Yankees Rookie of the Year, some shoulder tightness, having an MRI. Not exactly what you want coming into early March.
No, not at all. And especially when the quote from Boone is, looks like he's going to miss some time. Yeah, we don't know how much time, but it's enough that I downgraded his projection time-wise a little bit there. You know, he has a history of not being super durable. He pushed hard. He throws really hard.
Yep. And
we see this. Throws very hard equals more success, but also equals more likely to get hurt. And, you know, that's kind of true with Gil. Kind of a guy I haven't been going after because his second half wasn't as strong as his first half. I get, but you know what? He's also priced fairly. That's the thing that's tricky about it is, you know, that's priced into his ADP.
It's funny. I had a friend of mine who was a big Yankees fan who was asking me, you know, do you think the Yankees trade Stroman with the situation? I'm like, let's give it like 2 or 3 weeks. Let's see if like there's actually not a couple injuries, because these things tend to work themselves out, especially with pitching. We talk about it with, you know, crowded infields or outfields all the time, but with pitching, man, teams now like they need 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 starters, whatever it may be. I think that you know, Stroman's going to find plenty of spots to make starts for the Yankees.
Yeah, look at the Dodgers last year. They ended the season with 3 healthy starters.
Yeah,
and they
how did that work in the playoffs?
Yeah, it worked out all right. But I mean, their season was on the line and they won a bullpen game against the Padres. Let's not forget that.
Kind of wild. I had kind of forgotten about that, but they were like, you know, they were, like you said, one bullpen game away from being the chokers that can't win the big one again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, I think all these teams, I mean, there's a reason why all these teams are talking about 6-man rotations. I hate it, by the way. I think but if you can't have a guy just rotting away, not pitching either. You know, when you need them to be kind of up to speed. So I get it why teams are dabbling with that. Yeah. The Yankees, I mean, it's not just Gil also. I mean, Clark Schmidt's got the back issue there, and I think he'll be fine. And it's like the notes suggest he's going to be fine. Garrett Cole was hurt last spring, you know, missed a good chunk of the season. There's plenty of reasons why this could all work out. And it doesn't stop with those those 6. You know, there's other guys that are going to possibly emerge later on, some prospects. You know, don't forget, like, you know, Will Warren, for instance, might get a run at some point in time too.
Yeah, that's a good call. And, you know, Max Fried has had some issues with that arm too. I mean, he's not. I obviously he passes physical and looks good so far, but I mean that's another. They're pitchers, and you know, Carlos Rodon is not the guy that's never going to get hurt either. So I don't think Stroman's gonna be a problem, but he's going to get some starts. I don't think he's handling it especially well. I'm someone who usually likes Marcus Stroman, but I think that the Gil thing, the problem with pitchers is the key is that you shut them down. It's not like a hitter where, you know, maybe a week of at bats, you can ramp them back up. A pitcher's got to ramp up everything and get the arm going again. You shut down for a few weeks. I mean, you're talking another 6 weeks after that, probably, especially this point of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we don't have it on the outline, but I want to mention the Red Sox too as another team where they're talking 6-man rotation. They have all these options. Garrett Crochet looks great. Tanner Houck looks healthy. Brian Bayo, there's just a quote from the manager saying that they're not certain he'll be ready for the start of the season. Lucas Giolito is going to make his debut like March 11th. Yeah. Cutter Crawford's out right now. So they're talking up Quinn Priester. They're talking up Cooper Criswell and Richard Fitz, who hit 99 miles an hour. Patrick Sandoval is going to come back at some point in time. Just realize there's pathways here. Walker Buehler made his debut just this weekend, and it was good. But the fact is, they're kind of slow rolling him. Now, not every slow roll is injury related. Sometimes it's just like, hey, he pitched deep into the playoffs. We're going to take our time. But just realize that has consequences too.
Yeah, it does. It was as you're going through that, I'm like, oh, we got to mention Walker Buehler, but you hit there that they got a lot of names that you just don't know what you're going to get from, at least early in the year too. Former Red Sox Andrew Benintendi, big injury there, right hand fracture, out 4 to 6 weeks. He's kind of talking like he thinks he might be able to get back for opening day. That's probably gonna be a little bit aggressive, but this White Sox lineup was bad and got even worse.
Yeah, this didn't. I saw that it happened. I updated his projection, but does this really register with you?
It does not register very much with me. I was the only thing that registered with me is I was upset that nobody's going to draft Andrew Benintendi in my league and push everybody down a spot.
Yeah, that's one less outfielder that'll be available because someone else went that right. Yep, that's how I view it as well.
How are you reading Spencer Steer here? Your Reds, our Reds, whatever you want to call them these days. Sounds like he might open the season on the IL with his shoulder injury.
Whoop whoop! Danger to Battlefleet. Danger. Danger. I am very much concerned about this. He can't throw. Yes, it doesn't hurt while he's hitting. That's great. But, part of his value is in sliding, his base running. Well, is a bad shoulder going to affect how he slides? Is he maybe run one less time because of that? And it just pigeonholes him into the DH spot. And that messes up everything else for the Reds too.
Yep.
They don't have a third baseman right now. They're trying to figure that out. They're trying to figure out first and left field. Austin Hayes is going to play more. I think this is one of my takeaways is I would bump up Hayes' projected playing time because I think he's going to play more. Is that a good thing that he faces righties? I'll leave that up to the discerning drafter. But he will play more. I think we're going to look and see a little bit, maybe more of Stuart Fairchild likely making the roster. He's out of options anyhow. If Steer begins the year on the IL, which is kind of the latest that they're hinting at here, that's one less decision it's one decision they can kick down the road.
I'm going to veer for 1 second of our outline. I just want to ask you, where are you on Christian Encarnacion's strand right now? This is someone that I really liked the last couple of years. He looked really good his first year, and obviously was never, I think we can pretty much say he was never healthy last year. I know he played like 30 games or whatever it was, but he was really bad. But, it's one of those seasons, kind of a throwaway. Where are you on him right now? Because I think he's someone that I'm still interested in.
I am interested. I don't know how good he's going to be. I don't know what position he's going to play.
Yeah.
He could be very good or he could get sent down. I mean, there's a super wide range of outcomes with him. He's not, Marte's looked good in the spring, but he seems like the odd man out to start over at third base just because they have a multiplicity of options, including, Candelario, Encarnacion Strand has been playing some at third. Gavin Lux has been playing some at third. Espinal is going to be on the roster. They're talking him up as the best defensive option on the team. I don't know about that. They have so many guys that, Jordan Earnhardt was right. He posted, or Earhart, excuse me. I didn't mean to butcher your name. They have so many guys. They're not going to hurry Steer back. I agree with that. It also means they can afford to take their time in the young guys too, but not really. I mean, if the young guys are clearly better than the older guys, I mean, they can't afford to get off to a stupid, terrible start either.
And the one thing I go back to with CES is that just you take out last year, and I know last year's bad. You take out last year, he hit everywhere. He played. He was good everywhere at every level, including the majors. That the 63 games he had in 2023. I don't know. I kind of rely on the fact that the guy hit everywhere. I'm going to toss out last year. His ADP is still about 250 in online championship over last month, so he's not free by any means. But in a 15-teamer, that's 17th, 18th round, 16th, 17th, 18th round, and in a 12-teamer, that's probably in the early 20s. I don't know. I'm kind of taking a shot on a guy who's kind of hit everywhere except from last year.
Yeah, agreed. I will have. I think I have drafted him once or twice, but I will continue. I'll do so again at some point in time because I want to be there if it happens. Yeah. I also wouldn't mind taking a late shot on Marte, even though knowing he's going to start the year in the minors. The problem is he's better in a draft champ. That's better to try to do that in a draft champions than to do it in a managed league format there because it's tough when you only have 7 bench spots to try to hold on to a guy like that.
I think your Austin Hayes call interesting in a deeper league, though. I think that maybe in an NFBC type format, you could play like half weeks. You could play him just at home. If you get 2 lefties, you could play him. I think that's kind of an interesting call. Hitting in such a great park.
Yep, absolutely.
Not good news for Tigers Parker Meadows this weekend. Nerve issue in his right upper arm, shut down and reevaluated in a few weeks is not a great thing for someone that we were very interested in last year, and probably was going to be interesting this year. He's only 25. This is not a good news note here.
No, it isn't. And the funny thing is, on Friday he still went for $19 in AL only labor,
wow,
which I was a little surprised at there. ADP in the last 2 weeks is 196 in the online championship. But a range of like 156 to 274. And I think I'm in every draft that he's in the 160 range because I never seem to get Parker Meadows. I like Parker Meadows. Maybe I'm getting saved for myself with this because this is not a good deal here because, nerve issues, they don't go away very readily.
Yeah.
I think we say that about 17 different injuries, but that feels like one of them.
Yeah, that one I'm worried about. It revalued in a few weeks, just so open ended that I just I think you gotta stay away now, and maybe if you're drafting later, kind of see how that works out. Quick note today: Corbin Carroll left today's game with some back tightness. We don't have any word on how the severity of that, but just a heads up. That's obviously a guy that's kind of middle late first round. Interesting note there. You want to make sure that he's good to go pretty quickly here. How do you feel about catcher Will Smith, Dodgers catcher? The note this week was he's dealing with a bone bruise in his ankle since last June, and there's some talk
I saw that.
The most important thing in this note was that maybe he'll take some more days off, which is the thing you like with Will Smith. He's hitting that lineup, playing a lot. If he's taking more days off, that's got to affect where you want to take him.
Yeah, for sure. It is definitely caught my eye. The fact he had all off season, maybe it's a shorter off season than other teams, but he had it, and he's still getting managed. The fact that Ohtani, is going to be DHing for the most part there takes away that as an option for him. They've got Dalton rushing. They need to find ways to play Dalton rushing too. Although I think rushing begins the year in the minors, but I think he gets there sooner rather than later. I also think the Freddie Freeman note suggests he may miss some games here and there early on.
Talk of like day games after night games, Freeman not playing.
Yep. That, and I think that, it's just, they say that it's only going to be that for now, but it could be longer than that too, with both these players. So I did downgrade both Freeman and Will Smith.
And we talked about the Reds not needing to push anybody. The Dodgers certainly don't need to push anybody. They're not going to have any sort of trouble making the playoffs. So, when you get guys that are important to them like Will Smith and Freeman, you got to think they're going to do everything they can to manage those guys.
Absolutely.
Last note, I want to talk about another first rounder. Gunnar Henderson missed the weekend with some right side soreness. There was another note today that he's a few days away from baseball activities. It's March 2nd. I'm not worried yet, but this is one of those things. Any kind of side soreness, oblique, that sort of thing. I'd like to see him playing for 5, 6, 7 days in a row before I really take him in the first round. Luckily, my drafts are not for a little bit, but that's one that I'm definitely keeping my eye on this week.
Yeah, I took him in my last 2 drafts, so that was fun.
Did you get any sort of discount, or was it before?
No, this was before this happened.
Okay.
In both cases. Last draft was Tuesday, mixed labor, and I got him in the 7 slot. And of course, I think it was Thursday that the note came down. It was right during the show, during the VSiN show that I'm doing now. That's when that happened. So we're like sweating that during the course of the show. Like, give me more info. He had an oblique, and Gunnar Henderson had an oblique issue in the spring last year, if you recall. Season turned out okay. So, I at least trust the Orioles to kind of diagnose and treat. So there is that. Also watch for Jordan Westberg. Also kind of got some back issues. Something also to watch for. Also some exposure to Jordan Westberg in my league so far too.
Yeah, I'm not worried on Henderson yet, but I just wanted to throw it out there that that's what I'm watching. I think a lot of these ones you're like, I'm not worried about it. But that's one with side soreness. You just don't want to see him tweak anything else. But as long as he gets going, he doesn't need a lot of time to ramp up. So it should be fine, but just one that I'm keeping my eye on. But that's kind of the news and notes. Not a ton going on yet. As we ramp up into games, we'll get some more. But I want to talk closer, so I want to save some time for that. Let's jump in there. But first, a note from our sponsors at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Coming from another service, Fantrax make that easy as well. Fantrax can import any of your current leagues and customize as needed. Fantrax offers the most in-depth player pool in the industry, including minor league players. If you need a customizable commission service for your fantasy league, Fantrax offers more customization than any other platform, from waivers to what scoring categories you want to use, your scoring system, how you want to schedule your head-to-head leagues. Fantrax offers custom solutions for all that and a lot more, and it's all free. Sign up for free today and be entered to win official Major League Baseball jerseys signed by Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Simply go to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/RotoWire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. So Jeff, I broke down the closers into some tiers here. I think it kind of works best that way. Obviously, closers are exceptionally important. There's a category they get on their own. Saves is always frustrating, always difficult. You and I have talked multiple times over the last few years how a lot of teams are going to closer by committee. There's not as many traditional type closers. So these guys at the top do bring a lot of value. If you want to compete in an overall championship like the main event, the RotoWire Online Championship, you have to have some saves. You can't just punt a category. You can try and win your league that way, but in order to compete in overall, you need to have some saves. There are some people who have kind of semi-punted and done well overall, but it's really difficult. You got to be perfect everywhere else. So we're going to talk a bunch about closers here. There's 7 guys that are in the top 60 of ADP. For ADP this week, I used the last month of online championships. Just a Fab League is so much different how you draft closers compared to a draft and hold. So I wanted to use the Fab League for that. There's 7 guys in this list. There's Emmanuel Clase, Devin Williams, Josh Hader, Edwin Diaz, Mason Miller, Raisel, Iglesias, and Ryan Helsley. Those guys are all in the top 60 when I looked at the ADP. Starting at the top, Emmanuel Clase was unbelievably good last year. 0.61 ERA, 0.66 whip in 74 innings. That is a crazy, crazy ratio season. 47 saves. He had a lot of BABIP help. BABIP was under 200, but he's one of those guys that elite in not giving up hard contact. 29% hard hit rate, a 3% barrel rate. Do you have any concerns about Clase coming into this year? Is he your number one closer? How do you feel about the Guardians closer here?
If you dig hard enough, you can find anything, any player you can find a concern for, right?
Yep.
But the playoffs would be it. The fact that he got hit hard by the Yankees. Yeah. I think it's hard to find a statistical case against Clase. The velocity was awesome. The BABIP was really low, 195. Yeah. So if you want to, say, okay, he was lucky on balls in play. Yes, I'd agree. Guess what? That FIP ERA is still 222. If you want to figure it, want to factor in FIP, if you want to factor in that low BABIP, it's still great. And here's the important thing is he's done it year after year after year too. Yep. I think the track record is the other thing there too. The fact is he's a capable closer. He's been so for 3.5 years. He's had 3 straight 40-plus save seasons. He's going to be used like a closer. There's no doubt on that.
Yep.
He did blow 12 the year before, but then they still went right back to him. That's the way I look at it there. So even in a down year where he had the opposite BABIP luck and maybe some bad defense behind him too, I think he's still number one. And I have taken him once in a draft champions where you draft closers a little earlier. I also was on a turn. So, I knew if I didn't take a closer, then I was going to wait until the, all top 7 were going to be gone. I was going to be dipping in the next tier and I didn't want to do that. So I did take him at 3.1 in one league. More often than not, I'm not going to take Clase as the first closer. I usually don't like starting the closer trend, but I'm not against it either. I think it makes a lot of sense at times.
Yeah, the one knock would be that he just doesn't have the elite K numbers that some of these other guys we're going to talk about are. He bumped it back up last year, 24.5%. Swing strikers, 13.5%. So he's not a Hader, Edwin Diaz, Mason Miller kind of strikeout rate, but he just avoids hard contact so well. It's not a 1-year thing. Like he's been his highest career hard hit rate is 37%, but he's been under 33% in 3 of the last 4 years. Like he just avoids that really well. Gets a crap load of ground balls, which you like in a closer. You don't want to come in and give up home runs. He's a 57% ground ball guy last year. So I get the one knock is the strikeouts, but man, you said it, used as a traditional closer, they get him all the saves. And that's just massively important if you're taking any of these guys.
Right. And I honestly think too, sometimes not being a major strikeout guy is not a terrible thing because it means you have shorter innings sometimes. I'm not saying he is this guy, but Rivera was never the best strikeout guy in any given year. In fact, if you use just like, player raters, things of that nature, Rivera would usually not come out as the top closer in projections because of that. But, their stability was there. And I feel like Clase has the stability.
I can already see the tweet. Jeff Erickson calls Emmanuel Clase Mariano Rivera.
Yeah, definitely.
Next couple of guys are some veterans. We got Devin Williams and Josh Hader. Devin Williams moves from Milwaukee to the Yankees, so that's a big move there. A good team to probably a little bit better team, but still a really good team. Devin Williams missed the first 4 months last year. Was really, really good when he returned. I know it was only 22 innings, but 125.97 with a 43% strikeout rate. His issue is always the walks. He's a huge strikeout guy. He's got that changeup, the air bender that's just nasty. But walks last year were 12.5%. He's always a guy that's up there. He's in the 12% range the last 4 years. So you're getting that. It affects the whip a little bit, but he's so good that he figures that out. Do you have any concerns with him moving to New York? Are you worried about that in terms of the media storm and all that kind of stuff? You blow a save, you get 9 million questions, a little bit different than Milwaukee. Do you have any concern with Williams making the move to the Yankees?
It's a non-zero concern. I don't know his mental makeup that well. I think there was some discussion at one point in time that he didn't want to close when he and Hader, after Hader got traded. So you worry about that. Maybe you worry about the fact that I'm more worried about the missed time last year on the back injury than anything more about New York related or things of that nature. We last saw him. He gave up a home run to Pete Alonso too. I think Brewers fans kind of are remembering that one. I know that when that trade happened a little bit, but at the same time, I still have him as a top 5 closer, and I would still take him if he's there at the price. So I was ready to shop for closers.
I kind of put him right in the mix here with Josh Hader, who had a strong 2024, 3.80 and a .96 whip. ERA is a little bit elevated, but that whip is really nice. He dropped his walks down, which is always the issue with Hader. He was 13% in 2023, dropped it back down to 9% in 2024. But man, the strikeouts are massive, 38% there. Playing on it, pitching for a good team now with Houston that should get a lot of wins as well in the AL West. Statcast pace looks great. Obviously, gives up a little bit of hard contact though. It's always the kind of thing, and he has so few ground balls that you're going to give up some home runs. He's a 30% ground ball guy. He's a second percentile ground ball rate when you look at Statcast. So there's going to be some home runs, a little bit of hard contact. He was over 10% barrel rate last year. Do you have any issues with the Hader? Does the hard contact and the home runs worry you? Do you figure the strikeouts are so big you'll kind of be able to pitch around that?
I think he'll be fine. They trade away Presley. I think that helps a little bit too. To be honest, and Hader is now, because he got his long-term deal, he's willing to be deployed in more than just 1 inning outings too. So you might get the odd win or two as well because of that. So I'm actually just fine taking Hader where he goes in that tier. If I'm looking at a closer, I'm gonna go. We haven't talked about my number 2 closer yet, but he's in this group. But he's right there. Hader's right there. Honestly, I don't see too many fleas in this top 7.
That we were talking about that before we jumped on. Usually in this top 6 or 7, I can pick 2 or 3 guys I don't want to take. I really couldn't find them this year. They all are rock solid. As we get deeper into tiers, there are some guys where I'm like, I don't want any part of this. But this tier is really, really, really elite. Edwin Diaz is next. You mentioned to me that you're probably not taking him. I want to hear your thoughts on this. He was still 3.52, 104 last year in 53 innings, coming back from that World Baseball Classic injury where he missed 2023. The K rate wasn't quite as insane as it was, but still 39%, still really, really good. 70% swing and strike rate. The swing and miss was still there last year for Diaz. The walk rate was up a little bit to 9.3%. Good hard hit rate. That's not really a problem there. The Statcast page again, super red. You see these top closers are all bright red across the board. Just the walk issue with Diaz. That was the one thing that came up. Are you worried about injury with him? Are you worried about performance? What's your thoughts on Diaz here?
Okay, and it's a minor concern. Okay. If he ends up being like the 7th available closer, and I still want a closer there, then yeah, I'm going to still take him.
Right.
But it's the walks. It's the fact that he's lost the job for stints at times in New York, including last year a little bit, where he wasn't fully the closer. Remember, we were spending our time talking about picking up Reed Garrett for a while, and a couple other Mets relievers. There was an ugly period, really bad home road split for Diaz, where he's worse on the road. Again, it's picking nits because he ended up the season fine, and he was rock solid in the playoffs too. So. I just like others a little bit better. There's just a little bit more volatility there, but there's also a lot more payoff with the strikeouts, as you alluded to.
Yeah, I think your point about, if he's 7th in the top 7, he's there, you take him. I think that's really important because I think most of these guys kind of fall in the same bucket for me. I think there's probably a little bit of drop off after the next guy, but I'm kind of a thought that I'd love to take the 4th or 5th guy in this group and just be happy with them. But next one is Mason Miller, absolutely elite first year as a closer with the A's, 2.49, 0.88 whip in 65 innings. massive strikeout numbers, 41.8% strikeout rate, a 19.6% swing strike rate, just absurd. He actually dropped his walk rate nicely coming into last year. I think we were a little bit worried about the walks, but he dropped that down to about 8% there. A ridiculous StatCast page. We talk about all the bright red. He's 100 percentile in xERA, xBA, velocity, whiff rate, and K rate, which is just freaking insane. The A's should be better. I hate to say that, but I actually think they're going to be more competitive than they have been in the past few years.
They're forced to be.
They're forced to be. They signed some guys because they had to get some money spent. I think their offense, they got some young players that are coming around. I really like Lawrence Butler. Obviously, Brent Rooker was huge last year. So I don't think team wins are going to be an issue here. Not something I'm concerned about with Miller. They're not going to win 100 games, but I think there'll be enough wins that it won't be a problem. And he had 28 saves last year. I think that'll get bumped up. Do you find any problems at all with Mason Miller?
No, I don't.
Yeah. I tried to, and I couldn't do it.
My problem is I didn't have him anywhere last year. That's my problem with him. No, in fact, even like xFIP was lower than his ERA. It's like, and he was great last year. He's actually my number 2, even though I haven't ended up with him yet.
Yeah, I think that if he's your number 2, you get him. AP right now is about 52 in online championships. So in a 12 teamer, that's middle of the 5th round. In a 15 teamer, that's kind of middle of the 4th round. So. Yeah, I had no problems either. I think that the only concern with me would be just with workload and injury. I mean, he had a lot of injury issues in the past, but was fully good last year through 65 innings. But that would be the one mark is that he does have an injury past. But it seems like closing really suits him well for staying healthy.
Yes, it does. And maybe the ballpark's a little scary. Maybe gives up an extra home run because of it, something like that. But no, I'll happily take Mason Miller.
And luckily, the ballpark shouldn't affect swing and miss, so that's nice.
True.
Yeah. Let's see. We got 2 more guys in the top 7 here, but they're a little bit maybe a half tier down. But I still put them in the top. Both Raisel, Iglesias, and Ryan Helsley, really good years last year. Both of them ERAs around 2. Iglesias' ERA or WHIP last year was 0.74, just a crazy number there. Great walk rate. The BABIP helped him a little bit. How do you feel about Iglesias and Helsley coming off the big 2024?
So I love Iglesias. He almost is my number 2. He's my number 3. But here's the thing about Iglesias. It's just, he's solid. You just know he's not going to walk the park. Since dating to 2020, when we had the half season, or not even the half season because of COVID, he had 5 walks that year in 23 innings. 2021, 12 walks. 2022, 14 walks. 2023, 15 walks. 2024, 13 walks. He's awesome. There's no doubt about it. He's had 5 in those 5 seasons. He's had 4 whips below 1. Give me that every day.
Yeah, and he pitches for a really good team. Pitching for Atlanta, the Braves are going to win a lot of games. How do you feel about Helsley? This is someone that had a huge year last year, 49 saves. The K rate actually dropped a little bit. The swing strike rate was up to 17%. I don't think there's any issue with the swing and miss here. Did drop the walk rate a little bit. Barrel rate's under 4% in back-to-back years. He avoids hard contact. He looked pretty rock solid to me when I looked into it too. Last year was really good.
Yeah, it was. It really was. Thing about Helsley is he's a free agent at the end of the year. So that's something that he could end up getting dealt. But I mean, that might be a good thing, given what we think about the Cardinals this year.
So what you're saying is he'll be setting up for the Dodgers in October?
Well, that would be the negative, but there will be injuries.
There are very few teams that he would go to not close. I make the joke because the Dodgers signed Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, I think that's a concern a little bit, but I think anywhere he closes, except for like 3 or 4 spots.
Scott, before you do the read, Yance needs to know a best picture prediction. I don't even know who the contenders are. I think you got a better feel on this one here. What do you got?
It shifted in the last 6 weeks, but I think that Honora is going to win best picture.
All right, there you have it.
We're at 5:51 Pacific, so it's not happened yet. So there's no spoilers there. I did not know what I'm talking about, but I do think Honora is going to win best picture.
Yeah, I've spent no time looking at that, and I don't think. I don't go to movies.
Conclave, who Jordan mentioned, that has a lot of helium right now. They won a big ensemble award a couple weeks ago. I think it was the SAG Awards. I'm probably going to mess that up, but yeah, it was. But Conclave's got some momentum, but I think Honora's going to win.
All right, there you have it.
So let's jump into the next tier. I think it gets a lot more interesting. I think we had to talk about the top tier, but I think we like all those guys, and we're not trying to, we picked a few nits there, but I think that those guys are really good. This next tier gets a little more interesting. We've got 3 teams in the 70s here. We got 3 guys in the 70s. Sorry, Andres Munoz in Seattle. ADP is about 70. Felix Bautista, who is debuted, expected to be Monday. We talked about that before we jumped on. His ADP is about 75. And Jhoan Duran is 78. So we got 3 guys right here in the 70s. How do you rank these 3 guys? Are you concerned about Andres Munoz? Like last year, he shared the job a bunch, but now they have a new manager. How do you kind of rank Munoz, Bautista, and Jhoan Duran?
I kind of push Munoz up to the next tier. I understand the durability concerns. I think that might be a small, tiny bit of concern. I'm not really concerned about usage because, like you said, new manager.
Yeah.
And just the ability is there. You know, want to talk again, he's unhittable. 096 whip last year, 089 in 2022. There's the flea is the arm trouble history there, I think, but I almost elevate Munoz to the first tier.
Okay.
The durability is what keeps me from doing so, but if I miss out on the top 7, he's the next guy I'm taking.
Yeah, we talk about a lot of these guys, the striking so many guys. There always is a little bit of a walk rate. He was 11% last year, so a little bit of an issue there. Apparently, he's working on a new changeup, and I saw there was a story that said someone said it was the best pitch they've ever seen when they caught it. Was whoever caught it says the best pitch they've ever seen. So we got some crazy spring hyperbole there, but apparently he's working on all these guys are working on this new kick change. I don't know exactly what it means, but apparently the kick change is the new sweeper.
Is it like a tennis kick serve?
I wish it was because I could do that. I can't do the kick change though.
All right, there you go.
My fastball's not fast enough for me to throw a changeup is the problem.
That was always my issue.
Yeah.
I was in pony ball, I was the classical soft tossing lefty, changing my arm angle in the 3rd inning just because I had nothing else to do. Yeah, so there you go.
Large collection of Jamie Moyer cards somewhere in your closet.
Yeah, something like that.
How do you feel about Bautista right now? Obviously, this is someone that was unbelievably good in 2023. 1.48 ERA, 0.92 whip, 46% strikeout rate is just a massive number. It was like Edwin Diaz 2023 type numbers there. Obviously, the issue is coming back from the injury. His debut is expected on Monday. He sounds like a couple weeks ago they were talking about how he was throwing 85%, going to ramp it up to 100% by opening day. One, are you worried about performance? Are you worried about him coming off and maybe not having quite the command he had? And 2, is he going to throw back-to-back days the first half of the season? Like, what are we talking in terms of saves here? Because that'd be the issue is that maybe he just misses out on some save opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a valid concern. I thought he was going to debut later in the spring. They were talking mid to late March is what they were saying. And the fact that he's debuting Monday, that has my attention. I'm in a positive sort of way. I've been a little bit of a ninny when it comes to him. I've been kind of shying away from taking him in that tier. I've got him projected for 30 saves and only 58 innings. But there is remember when we last saw him in 2023 at 110 strikeouts in 61 innings.
Nasty.
I mean, there's a universe where he leads baseball in saves, and I could be totally wrong about this. I haven't gotten him yet. And the thing is, he should be cleared health-wise, I think. But, usually first year back from Tommy John, there's always like some command issues, things of that nature. I shouldn't say always. Often there are. Yeah. Maybe it manifests itself differently with a relief pitcher, though, too.
I would be more concerned with the usage than I am about the performance, I think. I think there's going to be a lot of, he threw 21 pitches yesterday. He's not available today. And then you get a save op, and then you just lose saves that way. So that would be my concern with Bautista. Obviously, he's just filthy and so good. But my concern is just the back-to-back side. I think when you lose saves, those all count at the end of the year. That it can get tough when you get 29 saves and you should have had 39. It makes a big difference. Yeah,
absolutely. Ask any one that's invested in a Dodger closer or a Phillies closer recently.
Or Jhoan Duran last year, who's next. He had 23 saves, kind of a Rocco Baldelli thing. Was another guy with a great StatCast page. He dropped his walk rate nicely, which was good. He was a 9. He was about 10% walk rate guy, and then he's about 6.5 last year. K rate dropped a little bit, but still 29%. Swing strike rate was down a little bit, but still 14.5%. The stuff is still clearly there. Where do you feel about this with Duran in terms of I think the manager usage is what kind of scares us always in Minnesota.
It's exactly the same, and it's the same manager.
Yep.
I
did look that up before we started tonight. I wanted to make sure that I always mix up a couple guys that got fired, and Baldelli's still there.
Yep, he's still there. I really struggle with Duran because I want to believe that he's going to be awesome. But the thing is, unlike Seattle, unlike Baltimore, there is a clear, identifiable alternative in Griffin Jax.
Yeah,
that's the real problem I see here. Is Duran, maybe he has an ouchie or two, and all of a sudden, okay, we're just going to let you rest, and it can happen to anybody. But I just feel like there's a little bit more risk of him not getting the save. So he's the third of those three. And I put him closer to the next guy on our list, Ryan Walker, than I do to those two.
Right before we get to Walker, Griffin Jax last year was K minus walk was 29% last year.
That's good. We like that.
I knew he was really good, but 34.5% K rate and a 5.4% walk rate and 18% swing strike rate. Like, that is among the elite right there. Griffin Jax was incredibly good last year. I had him in my my auction league. I took him because I think Duran was banged up at the start of last year, if I'm remembering correctly, and Jax kind of started with the job. But man, he was unbelievably good. That is a crazy stat line, and over 50% ground ball rate. Like, I don't know how you score runs on the guy. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's filthy. Brock Stewart, when healthy for the 7 days a year that he is healthy, is pretty filthy. But although he didn't have the numbers because he was hurt, all that. But, they're definitely, that's just the thing there is like Baldelli seems to find other people that are good in there too. So we'll watch. Plus, we might have the fallout from the starting pitching battle there as well. I mean, you could see a scenario where Festa or Matthews or even Simeon Woods Richardson gets sent down. I just have this sinking. I'm a sidebar here because this is a starting pitcher comment. I have a sinking sensation. It's going to be like Paddock and SWR instead of Festa and Matthews. And
we talked that about a little bit last week, and you can just totally see Minnesota doing that in April just to mess with all of us.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good point on Jax, though. I knew he was really good. I didn't know how good until I looked, but an easily identifiable next option, as you said, is really important with these guys that have the managers that maybe don't use them on every save up. I mean, it's just easy. It's hard to really critique Baldelli that much for going to a guy as good as Griffin Jax.
Yep, exactly.
You mentioned Ryan Walker. He's next on the list. About ADP's about 95 on him. I mean, he was really good last year too. 191, 0.85 whip in 80 innings. Really good strikeout rate. Really good walk rate. We talk about Griffin Jax. He's pretty close to him. He's about a 26.5% K minus walk. Walker, it was a little bit higher in 2023. Really good StatCast page. I guess the key with Walker is, do you buy in after this 1 year? It's one of those things. We don't have a track record with Walker except for last year. How do you feel about that at his ADP?
So on one hand, he hasn't done, this is clearly like a big breakout year for him. He had 10 wins also because he wasn't closing early on, but it messes up. And trust me, that messes things up when you're doing your like projections and all that. 2, he's 29 this season. He's not 24 or something like that. But 3, young, we see this happen with relief pitchers all the time. They come out of nowhere.
Yep.
And granted, that means they probably have a short shelf life. I wouldn't build around Walker like in a keeper league. I mean, I would use him, but I wouldn't make him like part of like, okay, I'm going to have him for the next 3 years sort of strategy. Use him this year, and then we'll see what happens. He was he's also started 13 games in 2023. Now, I think some of that was an opening and not really starting, but the fact is he threw a lot of innings last year. He got the Ks. I like him. And I feel like, he's a pretty nice guy to go to if you miss out early on.
Yeah, I would agree there. I do like him too. Do you have any concerns about former closer Camilo Doval kind of lurking in the background?
I mean, sure. If Doval gets fixed, and he's not walking the ballpark, then you could see a scenario there. But keep in mind too, there was like some attitude issues with him as well. His cutter and his sinker got crushed last year. I think that's the other thing is why he was walking more, is because his other pitches besides his slider weren't working well. So his primary pitches sometimes there. It's going to be an issue there where Duvall's got to get in a lot better command. But when he's going good, he's nasty too. Yeah. So it's kind of a tricky thing. Short term, I'm not concerned. But then again, if Walker blows 2 saves in April, everything's on the table.
Yeah, I think his leash is pretty good. I think Doval makes it maybe a little bit shorter, but I still think it's pretty good. I'm not overly worried about it. I think Walker would have to. Lose the job for Doval to get it, rather than just Doval just being that good. I think Walker's gonna have to lose it.
Yeah.
Last guy in this tier, we finally got someone that I don't want to draft. We got Robert Suarez at pick 100.
Really?
Yeah, I just think that the big drop off in the second half worries me. K rate dropped 3%. His ERA was 4.28 in the second half after his 1.67 in the first half. And just as you look at StatCast page, like his just pales compared to the closers around him. His K rate's only about 50th percentile. Hard hit and barrel rate are both a problem. He gave up a lot of hard contact last year. As we get into this range, and you're trying to figure out guys here, Suarez is one that I'm just avoiding.
And again, we have alternatives in San Diego. Yep. We have Jason Adam, who's great.
Really good.
Jeremiah Estrada, who's great. So there's 2 options right there. I even like Morejon as a little bit, but though he's lefty, he doesn't ever really get the chance. But the fact is, they do have pivots that are available to them.
Yeah, there's just enough here that as you're getting these guys, I mean, I think you just have to kind of figure out little things you want to avoid. And I just think that he's my guy that in here that I'm not taking. I would drop down to the next tier and take other guys instead of him. As we get into here, I'd take Jeff Hoffman instead of him. I'd probably take a couple other guys, but I'm going to stay away from Suarez. If I'm in here, I'd take Walker over Suarez easily. Pretty easy call for me.
Yeah. Okay. I like it.
Before we jump into tier 3, a quick note from our sponsors, the NFBC RotoWire Online Championship, which I already talked about many, many times. But the NFBC RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Online Championship is live right now. You can play fantasy baseball against your favorite RotoWire experts on NFBC this baseball season: Jeff Erickson, James Anderson, Clay Link, and more. Wow, Jeff, I didn't even make the read here.
You're in and more.
Wow.
No, I think
let's talk to our marketing people about this read here.
Very cool considering you're the one with the best track record of any of us. But
compete in the RotoWire NFBC Online Championship for a shot at $150,000. Sign up today for a draft today at rotowire.com/high stakes. That's rotowire.com/high stakes. And that's a read that I believe in. I play this contest every year. It's been live. It's a fantastic contest. It's really fun. It's a great setup. They do slow online championship drafts now too, so you can get it if you don't have a night you can draft one night. They do slow ones now, so definitely jump in. It is a really fun contest.
It is. It really is. I love we love the NFBC. They've been great partners for a very long time.
Yeah, so it's fun. Definitely jump on there and jump in there. There's a lot of leagues forming right now. It'll be fun 3 weeks of drafting that contest. So let's jump into the next tier. We've kind of hit the top like 10 or 11 guys. So I'm going to kind of clump guys together a little bit more here. But one guy I want to talk about separately is Jeff Hoffman, signed with the Blue Jays, 3 years, $33 million. So seems like it's his job. They probably signed him to close games. He's been really, really good in back-to-back years. Last year he was 217, 0.96 in 66 innings. He's a whip under 1 the last 2 seasons. K rate is fantastic, 33.5%. Dropped his K rate nicely to 6%, kind of in that Griffin Jax range we're talking about 27.5% K minus walk. 17% swing strike rate. Like everything here looks really good with Hoffman. He's got a great StatCast page, a bunch of stuff over the 90th percentile. The only negative is the hard contact. It was over 41%. Barrel rate tripled to about 7.5%. So the one blemish there is he gave a few too many hard hit balls, but I really like the Jeff Hoffman profile. If I happen to, be in a draft where I needed offense or a pitcher fell to me, I didn't get a closer, Hoffman would be my guy that I'd be okay taking my closer one if I had to. Yeah,
the only negative I have about Hoffman is the failed physicals with Philly and Atlanta.
Yeah.
That in the offseason there. Baltimore and Atlanta, excuse me. But they were also kind of pursuing as a starter. So it's kind of interesting to kind of see that. Yeah. For 1 year though, again, I think I'm on board. I would watch to see and if there are any reports about Hoffman's velocity this spring, if you get to wait a little bit later for your drafts to start. But yeah, I love his profile too. He's had 2 great seasons in a row in terms of performance. Walk percentage got even better last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Hoffman. I'd like to have a little bit more of him. His price is going up though. We talked about this already that, he's a guy where in the last couple of months, the last couple of weeks, he's starting to go up. I know I missed out on him a couple of drafts. I'm pulling up where he's gone in the last 2 weeks, but I think it's early 100s, and that's pretty early.
Yeah, he's been 118 in the last month, but you're right, probably a little bit earlier the last couple weeks. I think that he's the guy that, if you do miss that top tier and one or two of those teams aren't going to have a closer, I think that the Kaufman's name you click that you feel probably best about in this next range.
Yeah. And I suspect as we get closer and closer to opening day, as we get closer to the main event, those are going to rise.
Yep, for sure. We've got a group of 4 guys here, kind of in the 130 to 150 range. I'm going to put them together, kind of see how you feel and rank them. First is Tanner Scott, signed with the Dodgers. Dave Roberts has come out. The quote was something about extent of he's going to get the brunt of the save opportunities early on. Obviously, they have a ton of options in their pen. The Dodgers have moved around closers, many times, even when they were really good. You got Kirby Yates there, who's been really good. You've got a lot of other guys too. Trevor Megill is also in this range. ADP is about 142. Appears to be the Brewers' closer start. David Bednar's in here, coming off the really bad year, but 2 All-Star years before that. And then our Reds closer, Alexis Diaz, coming off a rough year in 2024. How do you feel about this group of 4 closers?
So if you would have asked me this before spring training opened up, Megill would not be in this tier. He'd be above this tier. He'd be much closer to Hoffman and maybe even above Hoffman. But the report came out, I think February 12th, saying he's going to be a little bit behind everybody else. Something while throwing. They don't think it's serious. I was like, okay, but that's so nebulous. It's so scary. Sounds like an arm thing to me, but they wouldn't.
Did make his debut today.
That was I was getting to that, but
okay.
That was the thing I was looking for a little bit, is that, hey, good that he's back now. Again, this is another one where I'm going to watch this in the next week or so, watch it like a hawk, but I'll probably bump him up. Otherwise, I'm on Tanner Scott. I know that, Dave Roberts, it was really hard to trust. I just think that the Dodgers are going to have enough save chances to go around that even if he's a 60% closer, that should be enough for the price you're paying here, like 130. I wouldn't want him. I would want him as my second closer, not my first closer, though.
Yeah, Tanner Scott is really, really good. The walk rate is the only issue. He dropped that in 2023, but it jumped back up last year to 12%. It was 15% in 2022. Scared me off in 2023. I was wrong. He ended up dropping it, but it went back up. He's really, really good, though. I mean, you talk about StatCast page, like that's all bright red too, except for the walks. I worry a little bit about the Dodgers with how many issues they have, but you're right. I mean, they could, if they win 108 games or something, you're right. If 2/3 of that is still a ton of saves.
Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, they paid him. They paid him 4 years, $72 million.
You're right. He got a lot of money.
Yeah. And like Yates got a 1-year deal, for instance, there. Yates is awesome. Don't get me wrong. He could be very good, and you get a cheap 20 saves out of him, and that's great. But I still think Scott's the primary guy. Again, I have trust issues. I did have Evan Phillips in the main last year, and we all know how fun that was. But yeah, Kopech's not going to be ready for the start of the season. Phillips is banged up. Yeah. I think there's enough attrition there that I feel pretty good about Scott. What do you feel about Bednar and Diaz?
Man, those are two of the harder guys. I think that I'm just away from Diaz. I think the walk rate just kind of scares me. And the K rate fell off so hard last year, down to 23%. He was a guy that got a lot of swing and miss. Didn't happen last year. From swing strike, it fell from 14.7% down to 11%. The StatCast page is pretty rough. It's just everything else is under like 65th percentile. You just compare him to other closers, and there's just a lot to worry about there. The whip was 1.3 last year, and he's still going to the top 10 rounds in a 15-teamer. I know the job is, very, very likely his, and he's got a pretty good leash there, but I admit that I'm worried about Diaz. Bednar is hard to figure. Like, he was awesome the 2 years before that, and last year he may just never been healthy. He had the lat issue early on, then he had the oblique in the middle of the year, but 5.77, 142. He still threw 57 innings. So like, he hurt you last year if you had him. Again, like Diaz, a huge K drop. He's down to 22%. It's just a matter if you are okay throwing out 2024 or not. I find it hard to throw it fully out when he threw nearly 60 innings. Yeah, those two guys really are really tough for me. I'm going to probably just stay. I would take Megill over both for sure.
Yeah, I got stuck in one league and I ended up taking Diaz, but it felt super uncomfortable. I don't want to do it again. I just,
it's hard for me to figure out, like, how do you project Bednar well? Like, what you do projections, what do you do with him? Because I do
not.
It's impossible to figure out. It's just really tough.
I don't know even if he's going to begin the year as a closer. I mean, it could be Santana, could be, a number of guys. The fact that they, I haven't, early on, like the manager even said, like, I haven't named a starter yet. I'm not committing to Bednar yet. I mean, I'm not drafting him in that range when I don't even know he's got the job. I've learned too hard in the past there. Derek Shelton said on the 25th, when asked if Bednar is his closer, he goes, "We're not ready to say that."
It reminds me of like 3 years ago in the main event. I took Bednar and it worked out, but I took him, and like in the break, the manager at the time, whoever it was, said that he was splitting the saves 50-50, like literally 12 minutes after I drafted him. I forget who it was. It was some like
Arizona, probably. They've been very deceitful on saves.
But it was a journeyman with Bednar. It was a guy that used to pitch for the Giants. I can't think
of okay. Yeah.
But it was, I literally 12 minutes I took Bednar. The news came out that he was splitting the saves 50. It didn't end up happening that way. It turned out fine, but that's a sick feeling when you draft someone, like in the break, you hear a bad news update.
Yeah. I do remember that now. Sorry. I was kind of
Chris Stratton. Is that the right name?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's who it was. And Justin Mason was sitting next to me, drafted Chris Stratton like the 21st round, then showed, I think he was like, "Oh, there's half the saves." And I was like, "Oh, there we go."
Yeah.
Bednar turned out to be really good. But yeah, he's just a hard guy for me to figure. I'd like to just throw out 2024, but I think it's enough innings and that you totally can't fully throw out. The K drop was so hard. Maybe he's just never healthy, but I don't think I'm risking it this early.
Yeah, I hear you.
So let's jump down to the next tier. It gets really tough here. This is the kind of tier where you've got to find your targets. You're looking for a second closer, maybe a 12th tier, maybe you're looking for your third closer. You took a couple guys early. I called it, picks 150 to 250. There are a lot of names in here. The first kind of group that I will ask you about, we've got Pete Fairbanks. We talk about Minnesota closer. We talk about Tampa closer. It's always up in the air. Ryan Presley looks like the guy to start closing in Chicago, although Porter Hodge is pretty good behind him too. Kenley Jansen signed with the Angels, so looks to be the closer. I think they signed him to close. I think Ben Joyce is pretty clearly going to be the setup guy. You got to think that they give Jansen at least the save opportunities, at least to start the year. And then Carlos Estevez, kind of a similar situation, signed a 2-year deal for $22 million in Kansas City. We really like. I shouldn't speak for all of us, but I think we both really like Lucas Erceg and what he can do. So you got someone really good behind him, but Estevez kind of signed to close. These guys all kind of have some similarities. How do you figure out a guy that you want to pick in this range?
I don't want to pick in this range.
Yeah,
I think that's the real answer is I don't.
And that's a really good lesson as you go through this. You've got to figure out ranges you don't want because you got to figure out the ranges find guys where you do want. Because if you want to avoid a range, you got to make sure you're prepared for that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to have at least one closer, and I'd love to have two by here.
Yeah.
And then just say I'm getting a bunch of starters in this range and filling out a lot of hitting spots.
Yep.
That said, I have drafted in this range. I've had to, because let's face it.
Who'd you take? Who do you like here?
Justin Martinez is really interesting to me. I think he's threw like 127 the other day.
I was saving him for next, but yeah, I really like Martinez too.
Yeah, I put him in this range. I put him above Puck, but I really would like to have both because let's face it, Arizona is one of those teams that is like the Phillies, like the Dodgers, like the Rays, that you're not going to get one guy that closes. It feels like that certainly wasn't the way at the end of the year last year. And Puck was just so darn good with the Diamondbacks, but I think they want to have some more optionality with him. And so they don't want to, they prefer Martinez be the closer. I had an early Erceg share. That was fun.
I love Erceg. I just think it's hard as he's not getting close. I think he's probably my favorite closer and waiting guy if you could take him, but he goes so early that, although I think he's falling, but he goes early enough that it's hard to take him as a closer and waiting. Although I think he gets a job over Estevez before too long.
Yeah. I don't like Presley for the price. I think Porter Hodge was just good.
I agree with you fully there.
And they didn't commit to Presley being a full-time closer anyhow. So I just think it leads to getting a nice discount on Hodge. Kenley's fine, except I worry about the shoulder, but I mean, there's no doubt about usage, right?
Yeah.
If he's healthy, he's going to close. Jansen debuted on Saturday. They're kind of slow rolling him into the spring training. That's fine. Jansen's got to be my number 2 closer, not my number 1 closer.
Yeah, for sure. Jansen would be my guy in this range. I think that he was actually pretty good last year, like a 106 whip, a 3.29 ERA. The K- walk was almost 20%, like 19.2% or something like that. Cut the home runs. He gives up too many hard hit balls. The barrel rate was pretty high last year. That was my concern. But so hard contact and a lot of fly balls is a pretty bad combo because he's definitely not a ground ball guy. But I just think the job is his, and that matters a lot. How do you feel about Pete Fairbanks with just how different his season was last year? He went from 37% K rate in 2023 to 23.8% last year. Swinging strike rate fell from 13% to 9.5%. That's a really ugly fall off for Fairbanks. And, obviously Tampa Bay closers are always a thing. He threw 45 innings last year. The four-seamer, you look at that, whiff rate fell from 29% to 18%. Slider fell from 31% whiff rate to 23.5%. He was a different pitcher last year, and I can't figure him out, really.
I'm not on Fairbanks.
I'm not either, just because I can't figure it out, so I'm probably not going to do it.
Well, and Uchetta is great. There's no getting around how good he is, even though he had that one terrible outing where he lost his brain afterward and, started beating people. But 57-8, Scott, that's his K to walk.
Wow.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
I bet the funny thing is there are so many other useful pivots in that bullpen. Manny Rodriguez is good. Hunter Biggie could be good. I think Mason Montgomery is a sneaky, guy in draft and hold formats there where, they converted him from being a starter. One of their top pitching prospect starters who fizzled out once he hit upper levels, became a closer at AAA halfway through the year last year and got called up at the end of the year last year and was actually kind of pretty good. 17 Ks in 19 innings and 9 innings, excuse me. So I think he's lefty, so that probably works against him a little bit. But this is Kevin Cash too. You're not going to get just one guy, no matter who it is.
Yeah, that's the best point on Fairbanks. You take that, and you take the fact that he fell off so hard last year. He's still in 11th round, and there's just no way I could do it there.
Agreed. I think the key is, I mean, you're going to have drafts where you miss out on your targets.
Yep.
The key is not to panic and push the next guy that you're lukewarm on.
Yep.
Like if you're taking Pete Fairbanks and Ryan Presley in the 11th round, well, I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, I do too. And you're going to get drafts like you not only miss your targets, but like you get someone in the 7th round, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got this guy in the 7th round. And it happens. You've got a 15 teamer. You're never going to get everything. So you have to adjust to go along. And like we said before, just make sure you've got guys later you do like, and you're willing to take a shot on. You're not going to be strong everywhere in a 15 teamer. So make sure you've got at least guys that you think you have some faith in to come through later in the year. But this next range is interesting. I'm going to probably put 4 guys in this range. I'll put Urseg in this range too. Obviously, his ADP is falling a little bit. Kirby Yates is the same. He's 187 ADP, but that's falling too after the report from Dave Roberts. He was really good last year. But Justin Martinez is in here. You mentioned him. You talk about a guy who kind of jumps out. You look at the StatCast page. I think it's all bright red except for the walks. The walks are the one issue. They're 12% last year. That's the problem. If he tweaks that at all, he's 59% ground ball guy last year. You get a swing and miss plus ground ball guy like that, he could rise really, really fast. Yep,
absolutely. My only problem is the league where I did get Justin Martinez scarf. I didn't get Puck with him. And I thought I was going to be able to do it, and someone swooped in and snapped him from me. I think it's Jeff Biddle, but I could be wrong. Could have been the other side of the coin there. But I was, it was annoying because it was one pick away too, and I would have had both, and I think I would have been fine with all the Arizona saves, and it would have been pretty good.
Yeah, I think that I think they want it to be Martinez. You said that earlier, but you're right. I mean, it's funny. You look at Puck's numbers, and it was, you're like, 3-1-5, 1-1-1, really good year. But like all those runs were early in the year when he was starting. It really did not work out well. He was a 1.15 ERA guy in the second half of the season. He was awesome in the second half. So
yeah, absolutely.
What do you do with Jordan Romano right now? He was signed with Philly, but only 1 year at $8.5 million. Obviously, he was a disaster last year, 13 innings. I had him in the main event last year. I felt the disaster. He was injured at the start. We're like, there was some good news. Then he came back, didn't work. He was bad. He got hurt. It was a mess. But 2023 was really good. About a 19% K minus walk, 2.90 ERA, 1.22 WHIP. Look at StatCast page 23, really solid, except for the walks are always an issue for him. But how do you value someone like Romano, who should be closing on a team that should be pretty good?
You ask what I do when he comes up. I cross his name out when somebody takes him.
All right, fair enough. So you're fully off then.
I had him last year too, Scott.
Yes, I do remember.
And I don't trust the health, period. Yeah. And he landed on a team that doesn't do one closer also. And again, they have plenty of pivots. They have plenty of other good options in that Philly bullpen. You look at Matt Strahm was really good. Alvarado, Kerkering, those are 4, so there's 3 other pivots right then and there.
Yeah.
I think it's another case there where they're not going to have just one closer. And again, it's getting into the more like, okay, it's not as disqualifying. We're talking 14th round in a 15 teamer. You're talking 17th, 18th round in a 12er. So it doesn't kill you.
But you still want this guy to get saves.
Right. And if he's not getting saves, that's the other thing. I don't think, unlike, say, Griffin Jacks or Uchetta or some of these other like lights out relievers, if Romano's not closing, what is he doing for you?
Yeah, you mentioned Kerkering. Kerkering was really good last year. 29% strikeout rate, 6.5% walk rate, 2.29, 1.08 on the ratios. And that was with a 3.14 BABIP because it wasn't really lucky, man. Avoided home runs really well. 54% ground ball rate. You look at Kerkering, that's a really nice profile. If he could slide into that job, he's a closer and waiting guy. But like you mentioned, there's probably too many of them for one guy to really get that job. But Kerkering was really good last year.
Yep.
And he's 23 too.
Classic guy to use in Solds leagues. You're, and I have one such league, because you just know he's going to be good and you don't care about the role.
Are you a fan of leagues moving to Solds?
No, I am not.
Just the hold is just such an awful stat.
Yes, that. Yeah. And it actually sneakily has the opposite effect that you think it's going to have in trying to value relievers more, because it just, more than doubles the pool of viable relievers.
Yeah.
Like Tout Wars did their Solds League on Tuesday, and the entire room, just punted relievers until the 9th, 10th, 11th round, if not later in some cases.
And there's always like 40 guys during the year that end up being really good Solds guys too.
Yep. So, I'd wait, get Kerkering, get Jacks. Although those guys will get more valued in that league, actually, because again, doesn't matter what their role is, and you just know they're fireballs. AJ Puck is gold in that league. I love AJ Puck. I mean, if I don't have to care about which role he has, I'm loving that. But So maybe I'm talking myself into it. I don't know, but
I still prefer saves. I'm probably just old and traditional.
Yeah,
but I still like figuring out the saves. It's
for sure.
I find it's frustrating, but I find it fun too.
Yeah, I just don't want to be in saves hell where I'm trying to fab those guys.
I've lived many a day there, Jeff. It's not a good place to be.
Yeah, you and me both, brother.
Yeah, it's it's funny. 3 years ago we had breakfast and we figured out saves really well that year for some reason. And we like drafted really
more
well.
breakfast. I think that always in favor of breakfast. So
we figured out saves and we drafted Frankie Montas before he broke out that year. That was a good breakfast right there.
Yeah, it was
very valuable. What are you doing in Boston? We've got Liam Hendriks, coming back. His last real season was 2022, had about 58 innings there. He was really good in 2019, 2020, 21, 21, and 22. 4 straight years, he was really good. He had a 36% strikeout rate last time we saw him pitch a full season, but he's now 36, coming off all of this stuff. He did touch 96 in spring training so far. Mm-hmm. We've also got Aroldis Chapman in this situation.
He touched 101 in the same game.
There you go.
But also walked like through like 14 out of 27 pitches for balls too. So there's that. But
he's got a crazy StatCast page. There's like all this like great stuff, and then you see like walks and hard hit rate are really bad. You're like, it seems like a bad combo to put together. But he was 379, 135 last year. The strikeouts are still massive, 37% last year, but the walks were 15% last year. We talk about guys in like the 10, 11 range. 15% is a huge number. Swing strike, it did fall a little bit. I'm a little bit concerned there. Hard hit rate's a problem. If he had the job, fine, but man, his combo of walks and hard hits really scares me.
He's the new Kimbrel, he's
good call. Yeah.
You know what? If he gets the job, he'll lose it at some point. Plus he's a creepy, terrible human. So there's that also.
Can you take Hendriks at this price? The price is about 240 right now. So we're talking around 16. How do you feel about him? Do you think he's got a chance to like be the guy?
So in a league where I did miss on some late closers, I did Hendriks and I did another one come up later, Chris Martin. I think is the closer at least. Both cases there, I feel pretty good about taking that. Like if I'm going to have a shaky second, I'm going to get a third. I think that's the approach I'm going to do. And Hendriks has to be considered a shaky second because I think we're not even mentioning Slayton and Whitlock here, who I think are also viable alternatives for Boston.
Yeah.
But I love Hendriks the person too.
That's the thing, right? You compare him and Chapman, you're like, oh, give me Hendriks every day. But man, you talk about a shaky second, and he is a shaky second, but he's a legit upside second too.
Yes, exactly. And it's not like we doubt his ability in the role. It's just his health.
Yeah.
And whether he gets the role right away. He even made fun of himself because he screamed after the strikeout and he goes, only a douche. I don't think he used the word, but it was a really blanky move there to scream in a spring training game, let alone any game. But
one of my favorite players. I love him cursing when he was live mic in the All-Star game. It was all beautiful.
Yep.
He's a great dude. I loved him on the A's, man. Those years at the A's, he was so good those years. It was so fun.
Yep.
Other names here. You mentioned Chris Martin. That's the guy I want to talk about next. A few more guys before we jump out of here. We've had a lot of closers here, but Chris Martin, the ADP is about 290. Looks like the guy in Texas, at least to start the year. They just kind of missed on everybody else is what it felt like, but Martin's there. And he's really good. He's 38 though, but he's really, really good. He was 3.45 and 1.13 last year on his ratios. That was with a 3.45 BABIP and a 67% strand rate. Like he was really unlucky and still was really, really good. The K rate jumped back up, which you like to see, back to 28%. The walk rate was 1.7% last year, Jeff. That's not 11. That's 1.7%. Insane walking for Chris Martin. Good. Avoided hard contact. We had a 4% barrel rate. He looks really solid. And then every time you look at his page, you look up, you see 38. You worry a little bit, but nice stab this late. I think that if I want a third and a 12 or I missed in somewhere, I think I'm pushing up Chris Martin and taking the chance here.
I've taken him like a couple of times lately. I'm 100% in on Chris Martin. I'm frankly a little surprised that it's 298. I get that he hasn't been named, and
it's not going to stay there, right?
Right. And the thing is, he was debuting today.
Okay.
Because he had an illness, and it sounds like it was a little bit more than just a basic illness. It was a pretty significant one. So just watch that. Yeah. But some of his competition, Robert Garcia, is making his debut tomorrow. And he's had a forearm issue. That's obviously a lot worse. But Garcia has some pretty fun stats. They don't have that clear, like, oh, this is the guy in waiting. If you want to go real dark horse, you look. They got a kid named Emiliano Teodo who throws 101.
Right.
But he also walked like 50 guys last year. So, I mean, it's going to be a while before he's ready. I like Chris Martin. I think Texas is going to be good. I think that means there's more save chances there. Maybe they turn around and sign David Robertson. I think also, but the big thing also about Texas is they're really desperately trying to avoid hitting the next luxury tax level. And they've got like 5.4 million left. I think they don't want to, they're not going to spend that now. They might trade for somebody at the deadline, but if Martin proves healthy, I think he could get 30 saves. Uncle Ted's been all over him. I want to give him proper credit for, pumping
Uncle
up.
Uncle Ted also picked the White Sox to win the Central in the chat.
Well, there's hits and misses, but he's right on Chris Martin. He's a really good pitcher.
Yeah, he is a really good
pitcher. Give credit where credit's due. I'm in on Chris Martin.
I am too. This is my if I need an option and I missed the second one, I'm pushing him up pretty far. And the key thing you said was that you look at the bullpen and text, you're like, oh, there's nobody there I'm really all that worried about, which helps a lot. I think
there's always somebody there, though. I will say that.
If there was like a Griffin Jackson waiting or something like that, I'm like, I'm worried here. But like, there's not anyone like that, at least yet. You're right. There's going to be some stud and there's going to come up huge K to walk numbers in April and May. But I just think Martin's really good.
Yeah, I think he is too. And I think he's got the most experience. Maybe they sign David Robertson again. I mean, that would be the one.
Is David Robertson the only kind of lingering closer name out there? I was trying to think about that. Is that he's kind of the one guy that someone could sign to cause problems, right?
Yeah, that's what I saw there. I should have done a little bit more closer look on that, but trying to, you just search like under free agents. Most of the free agents are signed this year.
Yeah,
and I'm so glad to see that we don't have the Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomerys hanging around. Other pitchers that. Hector Neris is available. Be still my beating heart.
Yeah.
Phil Maton. No, it's not great.
The answer is there's nobody. I know there's a few hitters out there. There's Anthony Rizzo. There's Alex Verdugo. But I think in terms of closer, I think Robertson's kind of the one guy.
Yep, I think so.
I guess Kimbrel. No, that's not happening, right? Yeah.
If it is happening, I'm not there for it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, fair enough. You and me as well. Before we jump out of here, a couple of teams I wanted to ask you about that we've not hit because they're bad and they don't have a set closer or a stud closer. We've got the Rockies, we got the White Sox, we got the Marlins, and then I guess we should talk about the Nationals. Kyle Finnegan signed there. He should move up his ADP. He was 298. He was good last year in a fantasy league. He was at 38 saves. 134 whip scares you a ton of hard contact. He's a 48% hard contact guy. That's second percentile. Kind of crazy that he was that. He get that much hard contact, but K rate's low. He's not very exciting, but he's probably got the job. Is there anybody? Yeah, for now. Anybody? Do you like Finnegan at all there, or do you like anybody in Colorado, Chicago, White Sox version, or Miami?
So, okay, a couple things. First of all, I think if Finnegan stays like say he moves up even like 40 picks, that's still probably draftable as long as they're naming him the closer.
Yeah.
But I would take a look at a couple of the pivots there.
The deeper tell me, I want to hear that. Yeah, because you cited the reasons why we should be distrustful of Finnegan. I mean, hell, he got DFA'd this past year. Yeah. Jorge Lopez and Jose Ferrer are two guys I'd keep an eye on. I think more so than Derek Law, who I think they prefer to use in a different role. Ferrer is left-handed. That works against him a little bit. He was considered a co-favorite along with Lopez. But Ferrer's, I think he's got some talent there. He was pretty good last year in a limited role after, getting the call up. But he's also not like super dominant either. But that's one guy maybe take a look at there. The White Sox, whatever. I'm not really. If the White Sox are good, it won't be because of Justin Anderson. I said Justin Anderson just walks too many guys. I looked at that for a second. They're a bad team, and I saw the walks on Anderson. I just kind of punted out of there.
Yeah, I think the paste eaters, I'd go Halverson if I was going to go anybody. But I mean, I've been pretty good in life not taking closers from the Rockies, so I'm not going to take them. Then
somewhere Sean Chacon is rolling his eyes at you.
Yeah, and then what do you do the next year?
We have 40 saves and like a 6 ERA or something like that.
Something like that. Marlins, I think Fauché and Tinoco both are interesting enough. I think they're going to be low key terrible, but who knows? Sometimes a team with young players can take a bump up, but I think they're desperately hoping Alcantara just deals and then they can flip them for a big volume at the trade deadline because this is a team that's committed to the teardown right now.
I like a late stab on Jesus Tinoco if I'm just trying to play a third closer, maybe trying to figure that out. He was 3.32.96 whip last year in 40 innings. Pretty good strikeout rate, 26%. Walk rate's okay at 7.5%. good swing strike rate. I know his BABIP helped him a little bit, but he's someone that I do think if he gets the job, I think he could be decent. Obviously, the Marlins are going to be bad. I don't love it, but if you need a third closer you're around pretty late in the draft, I think taking a shot in Tinoco actually might work out in a spot where if you have to drop him, it's not a big deal.
I agree.
Yeah. I sold Sean Chacon a little bit short. The ERA that year was 7.11. 35 saves though. I'd like to run that through the RotoWire online or the auction calculator, see how that turns out. 35 saves, but a 7.11 ERA and a 1.94 WHIP.
Yep, exactly. It's not great, Bob. It's Lygian in terms of that.
It's funny how times have changed. He was a 16.5% K rate guy. Like this doesn't happen anymore. It's wild as a closer.
No, even for the Rockies, it doesn't really happen that much. But
even for the Rockies. Last guy I want to ask you about, I guess we got to talk about Tigers. Jason Foley, kind of the guy in Detroit. He had 28 saves last year. Just not a strikeout arm at all. Swinging strike rate's about 10%. K rate was 18%. Hard hit rate's too high. Just a guy with hard hit rate and no strikeouts really scares me.
Yeah, I haven't been on Foley. I think that it's just there's two. I think his skills are suspect. His usage is also suspect.
Yeah.
Even in the playoffs, we saw like it could be anybody. It could be Tyler Holden. It could be Tommy Conley. Could be Will Vest, Bo Brisky. I mean, there's like none of these guys are like, oh my God, they can't wait for him to get the job.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're all like, oh, okay, I could see it a little bit here. Look at Foley's usage last year too. He had a huge gap between saves. So he went. There was a couple different points where I think he just didn't get saves for a long time, and so when he started getting them again, it was a long time. So he got a save against the Guardians on July 10th. The next time he got a save was August 15th. So a full
and he was pitching in there too, and not like he was hurt, right? Yeah,
right, exactly. So yeah, but then again, he got like his last 3 outings were saves in late in September too. So I could be wrong on Foley. I'm just because
dude had 9 saves in September. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, the Tigers were crazy.
They didn't lose a game in the whole month. It felt like.
Yeah. And you know what? They're a good enough team that there'll be enough things. Holton's a good pitcher, though. I wouldn't mind having. I did add Holton in a couple leagues. I think he's fine. But there's also a job battle in the rotation for the Tigers, which might have effects in the bullpen eventually there too. So something to watch out for there also. Like if Casey Mize doesn't win a rotation,
I get Jackson Jobe closing some games.
I don't think they'd go that way. No, I think if he does a rotation spot, he's in Toledo. But
I agree.
If Casey Mize loses a starting job, he goes to the bullpen. Wouldn't be that much of a stretch to see him close someday.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I kind of like that. But yeah, I think you're right on Jobe. I don't think I would just mostly joke with that one, but I think that's for sure. He can go to AAA too. Anybody else you want to talk about? I feel like we hit every closer on every team pretty in depth here. Went a little bit long, but I think we kind of hit the whole closer pool. It was a good process for me to prepare for this, and also a good process to talk through. I feel pretty good about the group now.
For sure. I do have one more thing. Friend of the podcast, Steve Brunn asks, "Who do you like at the 2-3 turn? May or may not be drafting against you tomorrow in TGFBI.
TGFBI Yogurt starts tomorrow. Steve Brunn, who's a great dude, is he's drafting at the 1 spot. I'm drafting at 2. I think he told me he's taking Bobby Witt already, so I guess I should get my Ohtani jersey ready to go.
Yeah, you should. I kind of want to get a little Witt and a little Ohtani.
Yeah, where are you drafting in that?
For my 4th consecutive draft, I'm drafting in the 7th spot.
Oh wow, you're really living in the middle this year.
I am. The one worked out so well for me last year. So, but I did have one spot where I went straight butter and got the 1 spot did go Ohtani, and that was the Draft Champions format, the First Pitch Arizona Speakers League. So,
what if you had the one in the main event? Would you go Witt or Ohtani right now?
I think Witt, but don't quote me on that because I could change my mind. I could even go Judge too. I really think the top 3 are. Really, I think there's a really nice top 3 there.
Does that make you KDS pick 3 and get an earlier pick in the 2nd round?
Correct.
Yeah, good call. I like that. I usually try and find all those tier breaks in the 1st round. I KDS with that.
I think it's 3 and 7 are the tier breaks.
Yeah, what you have to hope though is none of your players get involved in a gambling scandal the night before, so it affects the tier drop.
Yeah, or just ignore it and just say it was the interpreter all along. So yeah.
Oh man, that one still haunts me.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
Didn't take the 50-50 year. That was rough.
Yeah. I had 0 shares of Ohtani last year. 0.
Yeah, you and me as well. It did not work out well.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank everybody for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast, sponsored by Fantrax. We appreciate them for that. Obviously, really loved it hearing everybody in the chat. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. It's a long list. I couldn't get to every question, but I scroll up and down. There's a lot of comments. We really always appreciate that. Hopefully, my best picture win comes in here a little bit, so I'll feel good about myself in that regard. But if you want to follow Jeff on Twitter/X, he is Jeff_Erickson. I am at Scott Jenstad. Other than that, hope everybody's a really good week. We will back at you next night talking a whole lot of baseball. Hope everybody's a really good week, and we'll chat with you soon.